Hello, everybody. I hope you guys are doing well. I want to thank you guys so much for coming to our very special episode of Delight and Fright. We are welcomed today by our lovely guest, Steve from Bucket of Chum podcast. Welcome, Steve. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on to talk about this movie today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you want to talk a little bit about yourself and what you do over at Bucket of Chum?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Steve. I talk about shark movies, anything and all shark movies, and I kind of just take a comedic look at them. I talk about the good, the bad, and even the bad. I always say you get credit for making a movie, even if it is terrible. um, but yeah, so I do a podcast that's released weekly. I also do episodes on YouTube, and I do trailer reacts and things like that as well. Yeah, you can pretty much find me on all the social medias at Bucket of Jump Podcast and YouTube as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that with our viewers. I'm sure they'd be delighted to have you as our very special guest for a very fantastic week of sharks. Yay! So we will be reviewing a movie called Under Paris. It just released. It was a French, just a French spoken release. So let's look at the trailer real quick and see what kind of fun we can get into. All right.
On a un signal. C'est pas possible. On l'a enfin trouvé. En plein Paris. Qu'est-ce qu'elle fait ici? Un requin dans la Seine.
Qu'est-ce qu'il viendrait faire à Paris?
Pour alors quel beluga, vous vous êtes pas posé la question, non? Le départ du triathlon est dans moins de 24 heures. Si nous ne faisons rien, votre opération de com pourrait se transformer en un véritable bain de sang. Ça va être le massacre.
Paris est et sera toujours une fête, une immense fête.
C'est fini.
Ooh. So that was a fantastic movie, and there are some topics that I want to get into, just because of the impact that it has had in my life. But let's get your guys' take. So, Kat and Steve, what did you guys overall think of the movie?
Honestly, I was a huge fan of it. I did an episode with Joe Lascola from Movie Dumpster, and we both really enjoyed the movie. I get it's not for everybody, but I think if you go into it with a lens that it's a little bit B movie action, a little bit B movie horror, then you're gonna have a really good time with it. You kind of just have to buy into what they're trying to sell you. Otherwise, you're just not going to enjoy it at all. I can see, and I understand why some people hate it, but I honestly had a great time with it.
Yeah. What about you, Kat?
I had an awesome time too. I loved every minute of it. The beginning really sets the tone, that first quote. The species that survive aren't the strongest species, nor are they the most intelligent, but rather the ones who best adapt to change, based on Charles Darwin. So I'm adapting. I'm one of the sharks, so I don't get eaten. That's my plan. So I loved every bit of it. My favorite parts were the great CGI effects, but still like pausing and beautiful. So there was still the gore and the fun, but there was a lot of beauty in it, and then a lot of horror, not just shark horror, but real horrors. like the state of our our oceans, that are, there's really a place where there's just garbage everywhere in the ocean, and it's just terrible.
Yeah, that's true. So, hi, Frayden. Thank you so much for watching us from Twitch. That's fantastic that you were able to join us on this beautiful Thursday afternoon. So, that's a great point, Kat, that you mentioned. I most resonated. I most connected with the character of Mika. Um, I am definitely a animal rights activist. I've always been one to, I'm there volunteering at animal shelters. I'm there, rallying up for animals. So her character just really, really resonated with me because of what she was trying to set up with her activism. Just trying to, make sure that, she's, you know, hey, let's save these sharks. Let's get them out of the canal, put them back in the ocean. She had a good heart and she had a good place. So I really appreciated her character. It is unfortunate what happens to her character, and that kind of stung a little bit for me. But at the same time, she did what she thought was right. So I don't know. Which character did you guys kind of like and kind of, resonated with you?
I mean, I definitely resonated more with the main character. As much as I appreciated Mika's intentions, she fucked over so many people by doing that, and she was warned about it. Like,
Yeah, true.
our main character warned her that this is not a typical shark. And I like that they're very careful to say that it's not your typical shark, because they don't want to have the same effect that Jaws had, where they're going out and killing sharks for no reason. They're like, no, this is like something entirely different that we've never seen before. And she still says, like, nope, I'm still going to go do this thing, which I'm still confused about what her plan was, because she had that thumper thing, but then she had no scuba gear with her. So I'm not sure where she was planning on taking this shark once she lured it to this chamber of death that it ends up becoming. But it makes for a great scene, though. And I mean, when the baby sharks come in, just incredible. I'm all here for it. Like, it was great.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see that too. Yeah, that's a good take. I was gonna ask you guys, did you guys notice at the very beginning when they were like, the kids were like magnet fishing in the canal? And at first you were like, oh, this scene is gonna be irrelevant, but at the end it kind of ties into that beginning scene.
Yeah, I
I
definitely
love that.
suspected there was something going on with that.
With the shells and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And this is just me being picky, but when the kids were there at the canal and they were fishing, they were doing magnet fishing. I'm sorry, this is going to sound really judgmental, but they weren't wearing the proper attire to go magnet fishing. They were wearing like really nice suits and stuff and outfits from what I recall. And I'm like, no, you're supposed to wear like stuff to like get in the ocean and get the stuff that you're magnet fishing out. Like, don't wear nice jeans and a nice shirt because you're magnet fishing. Like, wear like you know what I'm saying? Like, wear the appropriate gear for what you're doing.
I mean, they weren't supposed to be doing it, so maybe they were just trying to be inconspicuous about it.
That's true too. I didn't think about it that way either. But man, so let's break it down. Let's break down the movie a little bit. So you have the kids and they go do the magnet fishing, right? And then they find the shell casings, and then after that, we get to the sharks and stuff. And then, what did you guys think about the research that Sophia was doing? With a deal. Did you guys think, like, what was your theory on that when after she gets there?
I was confused as to why she didn't go back to the research or figure out where this shark went after the beginning of the movie, because we just cut to 3 years later and she's just working at an aquarium, and I'm like, well, you know that there's something up with this shark because it grew exponentially within like 10 months, they said.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're just kind of like, well, it's gone forever now, I guess. And then they also keep pointing out that she's the only survivor, but she's not, because there was another girl on the boat
Yeah.
when she went down that never went in the water. Like, there's still another survivor who never shows back up in the movie again, who would have been like a prime character to be part of Mika's movement. And they just completely were just like, nope, only her, she survived, that's it, no one else. I'm like, okay, rude, but
Hey, you never know. What if she unalived herself after the experience and she didn't survive it? You never know. There's too much trauma. Too much trauma, you know.
Could be.
Never know nowadays. With the state of mental health.
The kids at this aquarium, right? What little dicks. Like,
Oh,
making
man.
fun of her. Ha ha, you killed everybody.
Yeah, and the teacher does nothing. She's just like, oh, quit it now. But then they just keep going. Like,
Yeah. I thought that was super rude for the kids. Because it's like, hello. Gosh, that's insane. So, Steve, what was your favorite part in the movie? And you too, Kat. What was like your absolute favorite scene in this?
oh, that's tough. It's kind of tied between two. Like, when we get to the end of the movie and all hell breaks loose and the military is there firing aimlessly into the water in circles around this shark, which then sets off this enormous amount of shells left over from World War II that destroy the fucking city. There's that scene and the scene that I mentioned earlier in the Well of Death. Because when we get like the little sharks going through the hallway, getting at people as they're trying to run/swim away, and then everybody falling into that big pool was great. But also the scenes where we're swimming through the catacombs and it's just skulls, pillars, and the red light. Some of the cinematography in this was really gorgeous.
Yeah.
I think ultimately, if I had to narrow it down to one, I would say probably the Well of Death, I think.
Mm-hmm.
As I'm going to refer to it.
That is a very intense scene. That's a good choice. What about you, Kat?
I'm in favor of the Well of Death as well. I mean, just the beginning where we see the shark swallow Mika whole, and just like that pause where they like freeze it in time, and she's just like, yeah, she realizes, yeah, you were wrong. This shark, you're dinner now. And then everybody just starts panicking and being idiots and not thinking and just pushing everybody into the water. I'm like, great. And then they all just jump in the water and start swimming. Like, you know, the sharks are in the water, right? Like, no, nothing, just chaos and stupidity. And like, I know that's really what people would do, sadly. They would panic, they would flip out and do stupid shit. I mean, we see them do stupid shit all the time.
100%.
Oh yeah. So my favorite scene has to be the ending scene where they're shooting at the water and there's that giant explosion and then the whole city is destroyed basically. I personally liked it because it's like humans did this, humans caused it. I'm sure the humans did something to cause the shark's mutation along the line, something, you know, pollution, etc. And now the humans also destroyed themselves in the process. So I think definitely that was like a good redemption arc for the sharks. And I'm sorry to say this, but I was definitely rooting for the sharks, Team Shark. Like, I was definitely rooting for them. Because I'm like, fuck
100%.
these humans. And then Chris said sharks 1, Paris 0.
Yeah.
And so that end scene where they're panning out of Paris, you see the Eiffel Tower, you see all of it. And I'm just like, everything's flooded and crazy and destroyed, and you're like, how did they do that scene? I was so curious about that scene because did they use mini models and flood the mini models? Like, what did they do to capture that? That was like so beautiful, though.
I imagine they probably filmed them just on a set with a pool, and then when they zoom out, it's probably just all CG. It's probably just a really good, or it's actual footage of Paris that they add water and debris to, and whatnot. That'd probably be the easier way of doing it.
It kind of gets you thinking, doesn't it? Like all the cool, like effects that they do in this movie. It's like, ooh, how do they do that?
I love the ending. I was just like, yes. I was like, is it gonna end like this? Yes, and it does. And I'm like, this is great. The sharks like took the city back. They're like, this is ours now.
What I liked and what was interesting is the connections that I made from Jaws to this. You had a mayor who refused to close the beach. You had a mayor who refused to shut down the triathlon, that swimming competition thing. I don't know. I'm not an athlete, clearly. So it's kind of like there's that comparison of like both mayors being dicks and having money and interest rather than, oh, we should listen to the experts and close it down. And then maybe maybe we can postpone it for a month. And then when we get the shark situation under control, we can have everybody come back. I know that would be a huge logistical challenge for a mayor, but hey, whatever, you got to do to keep people alive. But clearly didn't care. So it was interesting to see that contrast between Jaws and Under Paris with that government corruption there. Did you guys find that interesting, those parallels?
Yeah, I liked all the parallels that they had with Jaws too. Even the one where it's the yellow buoys when the shark is dragging the steel net through the scene. That was really great. And they weren't like super egregious nods to Jaws. Like it didn't feel like a total ripoff. It just felt like paying homage or like making it their own thing. It wasn't just like, hey, we like Jaws, so here's more Jaws stuff for you. And it's like, no, we don't need it anymore. It's fine.
Exactly. But it was just so good, so well put together. Is there something that you would have liked to see different or something you would have changed somewhere in the movie?
I feel like we sort of get an explanation for the shark, but like it's very loosely woven together. Like some of the environmental threads, like, oh yes, it's the environment that caused this. It's not really like they hard hit you for a second, but then we just kind of forget about it for a while, and then we kind of come back to it again. And so it's not really like fully fledged for me, like thought out what did this to this shark. I mean, I guess they're kind of leaving it open for interpretation, you could say, but at the same time, like we don't fully need it because we get some really cool scenes out of it. So at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's an awesome gore. I would have let Ben live, Mika's girlfriend. Like it was sad how she died. She
that wasn't
drowned,
cool.
and she just got pulled under and drowned, and like she wasn't even injured. They just kept pushing her down and pushing her down. I was like, oh, I felt bad for her because she had Mika's best interest and everyone else's at heart. She was just trying to kind of make everyone happy, which we all learn doesn't work.
Yes. So there, what I really enjoyed, there was a lot of things in this movie. Like you had the sharks, the environmental, the relationships between people, how to make people happy. You had, the gore elements. You had a little bit of the science elements, or sci-fi, because it's obviously not real. So and then you had some nature horror going on as well. So I like that this movie touched base on a lot of different things. The only thing that I'm super kind of salty about is my girl Sophia should have totally hooked up with the deal, because I felt like there was like that at the since the very beginning, she was like, ugh, ugh. Even when she got on the little boat, he's like, shake my hand, come to the boat. She's like, oh, I get it myself. So there was always that love-hate relationship, and then at the end, like there was just that friction between them.
They do after, but
If
they're
they-
too busy trying to like save
if
lives.
they survive
their own
the
ass.
if they survive the explosion, hopefully.
Yeah.
But I would definitely love to have seen those characters have more of an interaction, because that chemistry between them was there. At first, it was like disdain for each other, but then after working with each other, they kind of developed I don't know, maybe a more of a connection. So I would have definitely loved to see more of that being fleshed out a little bit. So we would have had everything. Sharks, romance, the whole nine.
But think of how it ended. The camera pans out. The two of them are trapped on top of this thing. They're going to be there a while. What are they to do? What would you do if you're probably gonna die?
If you're gonna die, like, at least go out like that. I mean, seriously, like, what else are you gonna do?
Yeah. Go out with a bang.
Literally, yeah.
Chris says Shark was an escapee from the lab in Deep Blue Sea. Perhaps that'd be an interesting thing to connect the dots on that one. And what about that scene where she's studying one of the sharks, right? She opens it, and then like you get the jump scare of like the baby sharks, and then they're like discussing it, like, oh, she's only been alive for 2 months, and these sharks are self-impregnating, and I'm just like, is that possible? Interesting. I wonder if that's a real possibility.
I can't remember. It might be. I know there's some animals that do that occasionally as like an adaptation thing. I don't really know that sharks do that per se. Definitely not mako sharks. But they do also say that this isn't necessarily a mako shark anymore. Like, this is something entirely new.
It's like new species.
Yeah, it's the first, like, Lilith, as the main shark is called, is the beginning of a new species.
Yeah, that is so interesting that after just being alive for what they said was the 2 months, that she would be like pregnant, and then, self-pregnant, and then it's just like, whoa. Talk about an evolution and a change of events there for the shark. So out of all of the scenes that we kind of went over, is there one that we haven't talked about that you liked or that you thought was interesting?
I mean, definitely, like, the opening scene was fantastic. It's over the top. Like, this is where you, right at the beginning, if you're not buying into this, then, like, you're probably not going to enjoy the movie, because, like, that girl's dead. Like, there's no way that she is surviving going that depth. Like, when her ears start bleeding, like, you have to be really deep, and she's already been underwater for like 2.5 minutes. So, like, but it's a great shot when she comes back out of the water, like the blood's pouring out of her mouth, the slow motion water, like, it is just a gorgeous shot. But even that whole scene preceding it, with like her husband and the other divers in the water, and they're looking at the whale, and then the sharks start showing up and circling around them, and then like we see the cameras like being taken out one by one, which is really cool, like kind of like Aliens. So yeah, right from the opening scene, like, I was in on this movie. I was like, okay, I know exactly what I'm in for. Like, it's gonna be ridiculous. Like, this is not based in any sort of science. Like, this isn't just a regular shark that's gonna be stuck in Paris. Like, this is something entirely new. So that was pretty cool. I like that they put kind of a new spin on things.
Yeah. It wasn't in the realm of Sharknado, where it's like, oh my god, this is like batshit insane. It was still not scientific, but not too far out from being like Sharknado status, in my opinion. Like, the depth, like how when they took her down and then her ear started bleeding and all that. Technically, that was a little far stretched, but not by much. Maybe a minute more stretched than reality. But again, it's just goes to show that it's going to be an insane movie, but not as far as Sharknado. I don't think it went that far.
I was hoping they would have gotten more into the sharks being able to disturb frequencies, because when they go down in the beginning, they start having communications issues, and then the shark fucks them all up and all the cameras get messed up. And then later, 3 years later, she's on her cell phone trying to ping the shark, and her cell phone starts messing up as well. So I was like thinking, oh, sharks are supposed to be sensitive to, frequencies and things like that. Maybe it's, causing issues with frequencies, but they never really went into that. And I was hoping that they would, and it kind of made sense too.
What do you think about that one, Steve?
Yeah, like I said, there's a couple of like threads in this movie that they don't fully come back to, or they kind of like allude to, and then we're kind of just left with that. Which, unless they're like absolutely planning for a sequel, which one, I don't think we need. Two, like it feels like the world's ending, so like we kind of know how that turns out. But at the same time, like, you could do another movie from, like, the point of view of another city at the beginning of all this going on, where, like, they're not quite sure what's happening yet. So, I mean, you could do that. I don't know how you would do, like, Under Paris 2 in Paris, because as far as I'm concerned, everyone's dead. Like, there's going to be very few survivors. If our main characters survive... Yeah, like, I would be down for like a Water World, Shark World, like crossover or something like that. Like that would be great. But yeah, other than that, I don't know where you would take a sequel for this movie. But yeah, like there's a couple of threads that we don't come back to, and like I said, unless they're absolutely have plans for a sequel, it wasn't really necessary to put them in. Like, this shark already had enough weird stuff going on with it. We really didn't need that part of it.
I wonder if they went through a couple of writers. There might have been a couple of revisions of the screenplay, and certain things got carried over and others didn't.
More than likely.
Interesting. Yeah. If a sequel were to happen with this movie, it would have to either happen like the Lilith, like how Lilith came to be. I think that would be a spectacular way to start. Like, where'd she come from? How did she mutate? What happened? Yeah, like a prequel to this, to just like from a shark's perspective. Ooh, that would be, maybe Morgan Freeman can narrate it. Like some of the bits that need to be narrated. I think that'd be epic. Or how to unfuck Paris. Like, everything's destroyed. Maybe we have a couple single survivors, and now we gotta get out of Paris to be able to stay alive, and then maybe somehow try to get rid of the water.
Like the Resident Evil plot. There's something really secure that'll save us, blocked away in this area. They send a bunch of dudes in there. They don't really know what they've signed up for. They're like, oh shit.
Yeah, something like that would be interesting. Like, yeah, you gotta go help people in Paris, and it's like, it's just a brawl out, sharks v humans, and that would be an interesting one too. So, but I think
full-on military action sequel, like just balls to the wall, helicopters, bombers, boats in the water fighting sharks, just like craziness. I'd be down for that. Like, just make it absolutely wild.
Yes.
Either go absolutely wild or give us what we fucking want. They prequel to how the shark got there, how it got all its powers and shit, because I want to know. I don't know. What do you guys think? Prequel?
I don't know that I need a prequel to that, because I don't know how they would really explain, because we know that they found this shark, like, it was pretty young from what I remember.
Mhm.
And then they found it like 10 months later and it had already grown. So, I mean, unless we see something where like she's attacking other places during that 10-month period or something, or even takes place immediately after that opening scene, because there's 3 years in between when she goes to Paris. So what else is she doing out in the ocean, or like has she been to other towns? Because it also looks like when they do show the map, she's been staying close to the coast for the most part. So I mean, there could have been other incidents that happened as well.
I think she went through some bad relationships, you know, and was just like, I'm done with men. I'm going to do this on my own. So good for her.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, we have a very awesome movie suggestion from Chris. Under Paris 2. This time it's war. Hey, maybe write in the producer and director and give them the idea. For
Michael
yeah, anything is possible. Anything is possible, guys. So, well, what else could we discuss about this fantastic movie? Some of the CGI.
I think it should be noted that like some of the CGI was like bad in certain parts, but overall it was pretty good. But the I thought the acting was really good. I've seen a lot of people complain about the acting, but I really had no issues with that. Now, then again, I don't know if people were watching the dubbed version, because I know a lot of times people will judge a movie based on the dubbed version, which is really not the way to watch it, because you lose a lot of the actor's performance in that. But then again, I don't know, so maybe people literally just didn't like it, but I honestly didn't see a problem with anybody's acting. Like, everybody played the character they were supposed to be very well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so too. What I will say is there was a bit where I was a little lost, like where there was like that time gap, that what was it, like 5-year time gap? Was it? Or a couple of years?
3 years.
3 years. That I was completely lost during that part. It was just like what is going on?
So I think the 3 years, which ends up making no sense in the end, but apparently mako sharks will go through a mating thing every 3 years or something like that. So that's the only thing I could think of, is like, so we're seeing her during her next mating period. But then again, they say that like these sharks don't have to wait that long and they're reproducing anyways. So, yeah, I don't fully understand why it had to be a 3-year period. Like, it literally could have just been, like, 6 months or something like that.
Mm-hmm. I think so, too. Yeah. It's just so weird. That part didn't make sense. And then the other part that I was having a hard time with was, like, they didn't really explain the, like, I don't know, since I've never been to Paris, or I've never been to Europe. Like, what the hell? The cops that were there, that they were in the ocean, were they some sort of like marine police, or like what kind of?
They're just river police. Like, it's literally just their job. Like, I think the people, like, they're police officers. Like, they can put them into any division, but like their job specifically is to monitor the river, because there's people aren't supposed to be boating in it, they're not supposed to be fishing in it, they're not supposed to be magnet fishing, so that's probably why they have so many patrols going up and down.
Oh, and see what I found funny, or kind of like when he was telling the guy no kayaks, and he's like and then he started like talking back to him, and I'm like, what kind of authority does this guy have? So that's why I was a little confused. Like, who is this guy, and why does he care so much about a damn boat or anything? So that's why I was like a little confused about that. And then there's a few other things that didn't make sense. Like, we kind of went over it a little bit, like the trash part. Like, did the trash, did some sort of forever chemical, like leach into the sharks and then cause mutations, or because there's a lot of weird shit like that. So I wonder if it was
I
like,
feel like that's what they were trying to imply with the garbage. But I don't think that that's where they initially found Lilith. And I'm also confused as to why they were at the garbage patch, because I feel like they didn't know Lilith was there because they just happened to get a signal when they were there, because they didn't really explain that. So I'm not entirely
yeah.
sure. Again, it's one of those things like, okay, was it this environmental thing, or was that just something you kind of threw in after? Again, like, there's a couple of changes I would have made to the script to make it a little bit more clear. Because maybe if they had found Lilith here the first time and then they come back 10 months later and she's still there and now she's this size, then okay, oh, maybe that has something to do with it. But this doesn't really cement anything for us.
Yeah, maybe the trash was from Chernobyl, so that's probably why it's all like crazy and radiated. And Chris said after 6 months, more people might have listened to her. Long time gap for complacency.
Yeah, that's a good point too.
That's a really good point, because people don't listen. It's kind of screwed up.
Mika didn't listen, and look what happened to her.
I know, poor summer child. I think I defended her a little too much, but yeah, I was a little pissed off.
Again, great intentions. I admire her for her intentions, but then she ended up putting a lot of people in danger, which is something that happened here recently in Ottawa. There were people protesting climate change or something, so they climbed to the top of a sign over top of a highway, and then stood at the middle of it with signs, and caused 2 car crashes in the process, killing 2 people. And I'm like, I don't understand what your point was going to the highway and protesting, because 1, yes, you're distracting people. 2, firemen had to come and block the whole highway. If there was a real fire going on, they wouldn't have been able to get to it because they were blocking a highway. And why wouldn't you go and protest like a gas station or these companies that are polluting places causing this? Like, doing it over a highway doesn't do anything. And especially when you cause 2 people to die, because now your message is entirely lost. And this is kind of what happens with Mika. Like, she doesn't listen when she could be, because they were doing good things. Like, they were turning and actually that's another point that we know don't even really get to, is when they're talking about all these beacons and whatnot, they are like, yeah, we turn them off when there's like a boat nearby. So I'm like, so are boats just hacking into beacons to find sharks to kill them? Because they hack into the beacons and they turn them off and like, okay, now they're safe, and then they go on their merry way. I was very confused about that, because again, we don't really ever come back to that. But then they just kind of use it as a vehicle to be like, oh, well, we found Lilith's tracker somehow.
Yeah. What I interpreted for that particular scene is, remember the speech had just happened about like, oh yeah, we're overfishing, and Mika's a big like, I don't know, she projected it to like social media and everything, where she's giving that big speech about like, you know, we're overfishing, we're killing them for makeup, and we're killing them for soups and this and that, and they're good for the environment, we need them. And so maybe that's why they were blocking them, so that way the fishermen wouldn't know they were there to help save them. Maybe that was my interpretation, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it's not even really explained to us. They're just kind of like, here's some information, you figure it out. It's on you. I'm only writing so much into the script. The rest is all up to you to figure out on your own.
Yeah, we'll throw in some really cool scenes, some really cool shots, and that skull shot. I was like, ooh, I want that pillar from my house, the catacombs with all the.
Yeah.
I was like, ooh, I want that. That was an epic. That was an epic thing that they showed. And some of the windows that they had for like the windows and then the catacombs. It was just so cool. That was a
Yeah, I
good
was
shot.
wondering if that was really there or if it was, replication of it being there. I mean, obviously, I haven't got to go somewhere there, but I can imagine at some point there has to be bones underneath the city, considering the catacombs are, been there forever. So I'm not
Yeah,
sure if
I
they
mean
actually found.
they do actually have like walls of like skulls and bones and whatnot. You can actually see some of it in the movie As Above, So Below. They were
Yeah,
actually given permission to film in the Paris catacombs. I think they were the first movie ever to get like
yeah,
actual permission to film down there. So we actually get to
Mhm.
see some of it, which is really cool. And the movie's creepy as hell too.
it is.
Um, but yeah, so I don't know if it to that extent, like a pillar that big with that many skulls, that seems a bit extravagant for what might be under there. But I don't care. It looks so cool, and when they had like the red flares going, I'm like, it's amazing. I'm like, I couldn't care if this was real or not because it's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And now the catacombs, that's not something that your everyday citizen can go visit, right?
I don't think
I
so.
don't
I
think
feel
so
I
like
think
either.
there's
they might
certain
have like
areas.
small tours. Yeah,
Yeah,
certain
it's
areas.
very limited. I mean, they go on for miles, but it's very limited what you actually
They don't
go.
want random tourists getting lost in them and
Yeah,
never seeing and then joining the joining the crypt.
And then opening the gates of hell, and it's just a big
Yeah.
mess.
It sounds like a big
and
mess.
speaking of Mika, what is the saying? The roadway to hell is paved with good intentions. She had the best intentions, but no.
She didn't the problem is she didn't execute them properly. If I was in her position, I would have talked to the scientist lady. Oh my god, I just had her name.
Sophia.
Sophia?
Sophia, yes. I would have been
Yeah.
like, dude, help me, help you. We'll work together. I'll get my people, you get your people, and we get this shark out. But if Sophia still didn't want to work with me, I'd be like, all right, you're the professional, guide us, and then kind of, do a little
And I
bit
mean,
more.
went through all the trouble to track her down, and then
Hmm.
she gets her there, and then she doesn't want to listen to her.
Yes, that's true. And Chris says, yes, they have tours every day.
Yeah.
Ooh, well, now I know what I want to do. I want to go to the catacombs in France. Let's go. You guys joining the world tour, guys? Comments?
I'd love to
Comments?
see the catacombs. That'd be awesome.
Yes. That would be
Afford that
epic.
flight.
Well, yeah, we'll book
Gotta
a
find some
flight.
really good flight deals. A really good deal.
Yeah, if we find a really good flight deal from Ottawa, we'll let you know.
Yeah, good luck with that one.
All right, guys. Well, do you guys have anything else to add before we end this fantastic episode?
No, I mean, just honestly, this movie is just a really good time. I would go into it with an open mind. Don't expect Jaws. Like you're not gonna see another Jaws type movie. Like Jaws is Jaws. Leave it at that. This is something entirely different. This is more along the lines of like Deep Blue Sea. If you enjoy Deep Blue Sea, go into this movie with that type of mindset, and then you'll definitely get something out of it.
Yes. It was definitely Research Lab, Deep Blue Sea meets like a little bit of things here, tidbits here and there. Some Jaws homage, some of this, some of that. So I think it's 1 out of 10. I would probably give it a 7 because some of the shots were really beautiful. Even the trash. Like, did you see how colorful that was when it hit the water? I was like, ooh, that's pretty trash, actually.
And then
It
there's like
Yeah.
it's all like decorated like Art Nouveau, you know what I mean? You have like the action figure hanging at the bottom, sticking out perfectly. So I think they went through a lot of work to maybe they went to an area that actually had trash, but I believe they did some stuff to it to make it look like that.
Yes, I was like, oh, trash should not look that pretty, but it did. It looked really like pretty with the water like contrast. between the blue of the ocean and then the colors on top. I was like, ooh. I was like kind of entranced with all the colors. So they did a good job with the cinematography. So out of 10, I would give it a 7. What about you guys?
I mean, I'd probably give it like 7.5, maybe even 8. I mean, I had a blast with it. I could throw this movie on anytime. Now that I've seen it, I know what's going on. I don't even need to like hear everything. I could look over. Oh, I know what's going on. And like I said, there's just a couple of really good scenes in this movie. The cinematography, like we said, is gorgeous. I've been watching a lot of like French horror movies lately, and they know how to make a movie look really good. Like a movie I always talk about is Infested. That's just on Shudder now. Incredible movie, super creepy. But yeah, this movie is a lot of fun. So like 7.5, 8 stars, 100%. And like I said, you have to go into it with an open mind.
That's true.
I definitely give it an 8 because I love Deep Blue Sea. I love that type of fun horror, right? It doesn't have to be all serious all the time. And it reminded me a lot of a Crawl, but with crawls with alligators during like a hurricane. So it reminded me a lot of that because it was a lot of fun, but definitely a lot more gore, a lot more dismemberment, which is always fun. So I give it 8.
Yeah, so 7, 7.5, or 8, and 8. Yeah, guys, so that's our rating. Thank you so much. And then Steve, hang out. I'm gonna do the outro. Hang out with us for just a sec, and then we'll be right out. So thank you guys for joining us. Next week is we're gonna do something very special. Me and Kat have to discuss it, but we will post it on social media and you guys will be the first to know. So thank you guys. Have a lovely rest of your day. Have a happy weekend ahead. Happy Shark Week.
Yay!
Happy
Yay.
Shark Week. Enjoy all the shark stuff. Enjoy everything. See you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello, boils and ghouls. It's your old pal, John Kassir, the voice of the Crypt Keeper. And I want to thank you for listening to Delight and Fright with your hosts, Luna and Kat, a podcast for outcasts.